Good deal. So end of the school year is coming up. Let me pause recording for a second. There we go. So yeah, welcome again. This is the InternNE webinar where we invite special guests. Today we have a two-timer already with us, DeMoine Adams with Teammates. Last time we had some technical difficulties, so wanted to bring you back to go a little bit more in depth on some of the questions we had, and then hear from maybe it'll be just Karen, but whoever decides to join us today. But Michaela, will you introduce yourself, and then DeMoine introduce yourself as well?
Absolutely. I'm Michaela Soundy. I'm with Grand Island Senior High. I work with our students for all the work-based learning. So I do the apprenticeships, the internships, and just some simple job shadowing with the students.
And I'm DeMoine Adams, CEO of Teammates Mentoring.
Excellent. So we're going to jump right into the questions here with DeMoine, and I'll start us off. So one of the things that always comes up, it sounds like, with mentoring is like you have a person who's super experienced and obviously working with a person who's inexperienced. So also people have different communication styles. So can you talk to us a little bit about how mentors can tailor their communication style to connect with their mentees a little bit better?
Sure. When I think of mentoring, and just from experience, of course, experience is the best teacher. But one of the main things from experience of training people to mentor is to be great listeners. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I think by being a listener, taking the time to understand someone, ask meaningful questions, that will allow that person to effectively mentor them simply by whether it's sharing the right experience and information or finding a way to model the right information and experience for that individual who is being mentored. So listening, seeking first to understand, then to be understood, I would say is probably one of the fundamental blocks of becoming a mentor to whoever it is, a young person or an employee. It starts by listening.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Can you tell us in what ways organizations can encourage mentors and mentees to develop active listening skills to enhance the mentoring relationship?
Surprisingly, listening is something that doesn't come natural, something that I feel needs to be trained. I would say first and foremost, being able to take a step back, take off whatever hat you're wearing, whether you're a supervisor, a manager, a counselor, or CEO, and just taking the time not only to listen, but you have to be very intentional. You have to practice it. Listening is kind of like a muscle. The more you practice listening, the better it gets, the bigger it gets, the stronger it gets. And you really have to really put that person, whether it's across the table or whoever you are speaking with, you got to put them first. It's definitely an art when it comes to listening. It's an art when it comes to mentoring, and it takes time. Building listening skills, honestly, sometimes it may involve training, but I think also a part of listening really is around one's emotional intelligence. That ability to be able to connect with someone. And that's something that I know a lot of educators, including companies, are really starting to invest in. Emotional intelligence, that's really the game changer. That's something that is really, I would say, needed, especially after COVID, when so many people are very emotional. There's lack of connections. Anxiety has increased. Emotional intelligence levels have decreased. So if there was one area where I would feel could really benefit mentors, companies, organizations, and even educators, is their level of emotional intelligence and increasing it so that their social and emotional learning turns into social and emotional teaching and mentoring.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think too about like, this is not in our script of questions, but about how with automation and all of the things that are coming along, that's one of the things that cannot be easily automated is emotional intelligence. It's like you said, it's an art, it's unique to each individual and each situation. So you have to be highly adaptable to also leverage it. So I think that's an excellent point. As far as a growth mindset and continuous learning go, which we all know is critical. I think a lot about the many jobs in tech which require that you continue to invest in yourself to learn and grow. But what strategies can mentors employ to help mentees cultivate that mindset of like I said, growth and continuous learning?
I would say it starts by really taking the approach of building a relationship instead of a transactional ship, in a sense. And I probably just made up a word, but there's a difference between transaction relationships and relational relationships. When it comes to developing someone, I'll give you the complete opposite of being prescriptive. If someone gets sick, you go to Walgreens, you get antibiotic, and you fix them. When it comes to a mentor relationship, that mentor needs to make up in their mind that they're not trying to fix anyone. It's not just, I'm going to tell you what to do. It's about showing them what to do, and to show whoever what you are trying to help them to learn and understand. You have to build a relationship. The relationship leads to trust. It's like reaping and sowing. So that relationship, again, goes back to emotional intelligence. Whenever you are trying to develop someone, you have to take the time to get to know them, to understand them, but you have to be aware of your own self-awareness. You have to be able to manage somewhat of areas that come natural and areas that do not come natural. So I do feel that when it comes to overall career readiness, the job place requires interpersonal communication, interpersonal skills. These are all things that I feel are lacking right now. And kind of going back to your point of people relying on technology, and via technology, best things in life are not things, the best things in life are people. And I think once we kind of get back to making those one-to-one, face-to-face connections, we're not going to set our students up for success in the future. Because even adults, we are guilty of spending so much time on our devices, on social media, and that's how we communicate, that's how we learn, that's how we interact, and all of this AI, which is all great. But when it comes to the real world and setting our students up for success, it's about people interacting with people, making those connections. We have to talk. So first and foremost, that mentor, that mentee, that employer, that employee, they need to talk, they need to communicate. It's not on one way, it needs to be two ways. So I probably didn't answer your question, but I do feel very strongly that in society, we're headed in the wrong direction because no one wants to connect. No one wants to get to know one another. It's very transactional, not relational.
I would say though that just building on that the people who do will make a difference. So even if as a whole, it's not directionally where it should be going, I think the ones who are investing and taking those steps, like especially when I see students do that, it really does help them stand out to me as candidates for sure. And those ones who work on relationships. Just to kind of continue to build off this question though, DeMoine, and then we'll get to the next one. This was about like how mentors can help mentees develop a growth mindset as well.
I would say first it starts with that mentor understanding what that growth mindset model is, being able to understand that every challenge is not a default. It can turn into an opportunity. That growth mindset starts with that mentor, and the only way that they can model that is students model what they follow. What they see is what they get. So not everyone can be a mentor, but that growth mindset is ongoing. It's continuous. It's the difference between a period and a comma. Helping someone to have resiliency, helping someone to have grit, helping someone to understand that learning is not a destination. It is an ongoing part of the game of life. And in order to become a leader, you have to continue to learn.
Mhm.
So I would put the pressure more on the mentors, not on the mentees. I
Mhm.
don't believe that everyone can be a mentor, but that growth mindset is the difference between a fixed mindset. And when you have a fixed mindset mentor, they're stuck in this is how things have always been done. This is who I am. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. These are your strengths. These are your weaknesses. That growth mindset, there's a terminology shift. Here are your strengths, and here are your lesser strengths.
Mhm.
That makes a huge difference when it comes to mentoring someone versus weaknesses. Whereas you say lesser strengths, there's a lot of science behind Gallup that I would say teammates mentoring, we incorporate when it comes to the language that you use, the messaging. So that fixed mindset, mentors have to get out of their own way. They have to be willing to grow themselves. They have to develop themselves. They have to learn themselves if they're going to be effective mentors. So knowing the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, I think both models need to be next to each other
Mhm.
so that that mentor and that mentee can both see the difference and continue to evaluate as they grow and develop together. Because I do feel that a mentoring relationship is about both the mentor and the mentee going through a journey together. It's not just the mentee, but the mentor should get something from it as well.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, so how can mentors and mentees effectively manage expectations and boundaries to maintain a healthy mentoring relationship?
But first and foremost, it starts with that first conversation, that meeting, laying out those expectations, laying out here's the goal, and what are we going to do to achieve that goal? One of the quotes that I love to live by is once you see where you're going, then everything you do must correspond with where you're going. So you have to always start with that end goal, and you have to have ongoing conversations about progress, uh, what is working, what can improve, um, ongoing dialogue. And then also, first and foremost, their relationship needs to be built because that mentee needs to be able to trust that mentor and vice versa. But laying out those expectations and seeing them every single week, just like for all of us who wake up in the morning and we have to look at ourselves in the mirror to fix ourselves up to know what we're going to look like for that day. How are we going to show up? It's the same thing with laying out those expectations so that they're visibly seeing them every single week. They're having conversations around them, but there has to be an end goal and there has to be a starting point and there has to be progress along the way. And that progress may not look pretty, it may not be perfect. It's just like the game of football. You know, you're trying to score that touchdown. It's not easy to score that touchdown. There will be challenges along the way. There may be obstacles, there may be setbacks, but that setback should always be a setup. And that's the growth mindset. When someone gets tackled in a game of football, when they're trained and conditioned to take the hits and get back up, that's the growth mindset that a mentor needs to have with a young person. So if a mentee made a mistake, they're not feeling confidence, let's ask those meaningful questions. Let's continue to provide them with resiliency, focusing on those strengths, because as Gallup research studies show, strengths is what leads to hope, engagement, well-being. And that will continue to keep whoever is being mentored in the game, in their job, continuing to grow their growth mindset. Because just like that mentor, whoever is being mentored, it's a muscle. It's going to take time again and again and again. And it's going to be a forever progress. You never stop exercising. Whatever you're trying to grow into or whatever you're trying to go to, it's a journey, it's a progress. But laying out those expectations and every single week, seeing them, that's going to lead to success.
That's great. Michaela, which question was that? Question number? Thank you. Okay. So I and And this was the one, I don't know if I heard this one correctly, but about boundaries, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So when you think about, we did talk about technology a little bit, and I'm skipping down to number 9, but ways in which we can leverage technology to support mentorship, knowing that, to your point, it won't replace it, and technology is not the way, and that relationships are the key. But what are some ways that you see technology playing a part?
I see technology playing a part when it comes to training mentors on the expectations of modeling what we want and expect our students to achieve, to be, and overall, to hopefully be able to grow into their strengths. Understanding those career readiness skills that the state of Nebraska have in place. So ongoing training for those mentors via technology, because these efforts, we're trying to serve the whole state. So as much as Michaela is doing great work in Grand Island, how can she share her growth mindset with another counselor out in Scottsbluff or Valentine or Broken Bow or McCook? Technology will allow all of the great growth mindsets to be able to connect and share resources with one another. It allows us to connect and continue those ongoing training conversations with whoever is in that mentor position. Because the CEO or whoever oversees that mentor in that place of employment, they probably can't provide them with what the people that are involved in this incredible project to help cultivate the talent of our students in Nebraska so that we can keep them in Nebraska. That is where via technology can really help all of us to grow together so we can serve together, because together everyone achieves more.
And that is a challenge of like a state that is really small population wise. I was just looking at a map the other day, and we're still, as of 2022 anyway, under 2 million total in the entire state. But we're so spread out that leads to that additional disconnect. But I do appreciate, one of the things from COVID was just that we all got more comfortable using technologies like Zoom, so we can host this webinar and have Michaela participate monthly, no matter where either of us are. We can do this every month with leaders across the state like you, Des Moines. But I will say too that it's also so important. As you know, Des Moines is on the road a lot, but it's important for us to get out and be with people in person to continue to actually foster those relationships. So great point. So use it, but it's not a replacement. I agree. Yep.
I'm going to go back up to number 5. What techniques can mentors use to empower mentees to take ownership of their career development goals?
Oh, sometimes those mentors need to be a little bit vulnerable and share moments in their life where there was a lesson that they had to learn the hard way, or a time when they were in their shoes and what they had to go through. So I mentioned experience is the best teacher, even if you can learn it from someone else. And so being able to be vulnerable is one technique. Another technique, again, is listening. I just cannot emphasize, I can't emphasize that more. We need more adults, more people that are going to say, I'm going to mentor you. I'm going to take you on as an intern. They have to listen. They have to understand. They have to get to know that individual's unique gifts and talents and help them to lead with their strengths. If they're introverted, you cannot expect to change them to be an extrovert in 4 to 8 weeks. You have to embrace the fact that they're introvert. And how can you leverage that? How can you have them gain this sense of confidence? I would say other techniques is allowing those individuals to follow their model in a sense. Being able to see that mentor in action when they're working, including them on meetings and other conversations so that they can actually see what interpersonal communication looks like. They can see what problem solving looks like. They can see what critical thinking looks like in real time, and then follow up with a conversation. tell me more about, what you experienced today or what you saw or what you heard. How can you demonstrate that this week? So it's not just telling someone what to do, but allowing them to observe it, experience it, and then talk about it. So a continuous cycle of really being very intentional. The techniques, it's not a lot of science. There's a little bit of art and science to it, but I'm probably not giving the answer that most people are looking for, because I feel that we are living in a time where we got to get back to basics. And to me, those are the fundamentals of what a mentor should be doing with a young person, an employee, when it comes to basic techniques.
I actually would mimic exactly what you said. I use the term a lot because I work between the business community and the students. And I always say to them, they don't know what they don't know. They're kids. And we automatically, as adults that have been in it for a long time, think that they automatically know, but oftentimes they don't. Not only do they not know, but they're scared to ask. They feel intimidated to ask. So I agree. I think showing them and teaching them is so valuable.
Mhm. Agreed. Agreed. We have a couple more, and then maybe we can flip over to, oh, we have a question in the chat too. Karen says, one of the things I like to say is, I'm curious, help me understand. That gives them an open opportunity to expand on the topic. So
Love
what
it.
do you think about that?
I love it, because there is and maybe a generation gap if we're asking employers to serve as mentors, as coaches to young people. And if a young person has the courage to share with them questions, maybe things that they don't understand, or something that may be so simple and seamless to that employer, but to that mentee, it's brand new. That mentor needs to be able to set aside their own biases, their own IQ, and turn up their emotional intelligence and ask meaningful questions like, tell me more. So I think that is a very great question. Another technique, as I'm just thinking, Michaela, because psychology is my background, is that mentors need to train themselves on their face expression. Because if a mentee has the courage to ask a question or share something, or even share maybe a characteristic that, again, growth mindset is about growing, it's about developing. And so mentors need to really practice their face expressions. So by not judging someone with their eyes getting big or they're like rolling their eyes, they got to pay attention to those little things, because students, they pay attention to everything. They pay attention to the little things. And it's the little things that make the big difference, such as asking meaningful questions, just like we got from the chat.
Mhm. That's great. Okay, I shouldn't have skipped around. Now I'm lost. So in my own question list. But I'll go to number 10. But this is about mentees navigating challenges. So a little bit about what was just discussed has a lot to do with, students being kind of sponges, really, and taking in all that's coming at them, good and bad. So for students, how can mentors help them navigate challenges such as imposter syndrome or self-doubt in their professional growth journey?
Can you repeat the question?
Yep. How can mentors help mentees navigate challenges like imposter syndrome or self-doubt?
I think one of the ways is for mentors to allow and give that student permission to be themselves.
Mhm.
They need to give them the space to ask questions. So once a week, that space where there's no rush. Think, again, adults can be in such a rush to where they're not taking the time to develop and understand and allow students to be themselves. We can't go in with a fixed mindset trying to change someone or this prescriptive way of doing things. We have to be very developmental in everything that we do. So that's kind of my response. I can go on and on and on. But I think so many students, because of COVID, their self-esteem, their confidence, have all decreased. What has increased is their level of anxiety, their level of self-esteem. I mean, just so being able to be themselves in a world where we're expected to be liked, we're expected for people to follow us, we're expected to be perfect. Why? Because of what we see, read, and hear, and what we are being influenced by on social media and YouTube and TV and all of these celebrities. Mentors have to be able to give those students permission to be themselves. And if that mentor does not give that permission, then that student, they're going to always try to be like someone else. And whenever someone doesn't set personal goals for themselves, they're going to always find themselves comparing themselves with other people. And that's the society that we live in.
So this kind of goes back to your point a bit ago about building that trust then between the two, it sounds like, right? Would you say that those two things are connected?
Yes. Students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So going to number 8, how can organizations leverage mentorship programs to promote knowledge sharing and cross-functional collaboration?
I think it needs to become a fabric of what they do, especially if they're trying to retain their own talent. And when new talent comes in, the culture that they set for young talent, we're talking about internships here. So if a student gets an intern, let's just say I'm looking around, I see HDR downtown Omaha. I see First National Bank right now. What's gonna make that student excited about one day applying for a job there? So I would say that mentorship really starts with the culture. How do people walk around? How do they show up? Are they engaged? Are they passionate? Are they connected to the mission? Do they practice what they preach? Do they lead by example? Mentorship is, I think sometimes people misperceive it as tutoring, but mentorship is how you show up. How do you use your role to be a role model? So if there's a culture, what are the team norms? Is it respect? Is it integrity? Is it transparency? Is it so those things need to be modeled every day. That's the culture, because the atmosphere that you create determines the people that you produce. It starts with the top, starts with the CEO, and then that environment of mentorship is really putting we over me in terms of having an attitude, but always leading by example, taking care of one another, having each other's back, being strength spotters, letting people know that I care about you, asking the question, how are you doing, instead of what are you doing? And then when a young person becomes a part of that culture, they're not just an intern, they are a part of the team.
I really like your point of ask, how are you doing, not what are you doing, as a very task-driven person that speaks to me. So thanks for that. I have one more, and then Michaela, if you want to take one more, and then we'll flip it over to Karen if she has one. Okay, so I know we talked a lot last time about inclusion and diversity, and that's just such an important topic. But when you think about Nebraska becoming more diverse, workforce is getting there too. How can organizations, and from your perspective, foster a sense of belonging and inclusivity within mentorship programs to support underrepresented individuals?
I think by having more dialogue and conversations and really putting the data in front of people, showing the facts, and just showing the percentages that for Omaha, the majority of African Americans, I would say a survey was done by the Omaha Chamber of Commerce, that a third of, I would say, graduates indicated that they don't feel that the workplace in Omaha is a place that makes them feel belonging and is a place that they would like to, I guess, engage to make Omaha their home.
Mm.
And so for companies to be able to see that, they need to do something with it. We have so much data, we collect it, but no one's doing anything with it. So there's data out there. And I don't think we need to keep doing surveys. I mean, having a conversation about what's in our face right now and what are we going to do about it.
Mhm.
So if a company has an HR, it's their job to find talent. Well, why don't we be intentional and look for diverse talent? Let's look for young talent. Let's look for talent when it comes to someone's race, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, their gender, their socioeconomic background. Are they from rural Nebraska or are they from suburban Nebraska? I mean, across the board, what are HR departments doing to diversify the workplace?
Mhm.
HR, they need to step it up. But most importantly, companies need to step it up. The data is right there in their face.
Mhm.
And there needs to be conversation about it. And let's do something about it. Let's stop talking about it.
Right. And then I think, would you say too, I'm asking this to both of you, but as far as companies go, HR is one side of it. That's the hiring side, of course, like find the right people. But then once you get a person within an organization, being intentional about making them feel welcome. And it's not employee resource groups are great, but it's more than that, just that intentional relationship building, culture improvements, all that stuff. Would you say that's the case, or what do you think?
So for our organization, Teammates Mentoring, one of our core values is inclusion. And it's not defined by what Twitter and Instagram defines it. It's defined based on we meet people where they're at. We want people to feel like they belong. We want people to feel value. We want people to feel like they can be themselves and they can contribute who they are and show up the best that they can be with their strengths. So it starts with those values and that culture of that company. That's going to determine retention and is also going to determine how successful internship programs will be. But those are my thoughts, Kayla. I'm sorry, Michaela. What are your thoughts?
I actually completely agree. And the one thing that I've been thinking about as you were going through your answer is we have a company here in town, GIX Logistics. Um, and they're a trucking logistics company, okay? And you walk into their office, and one, it doesn't look like anything you would find in Nebraska. It looks something like maybe you would find more in New York City. It is an open working concept. There's standing desks, there's sitting desks, there's people working from couches. They've got pool board, gaming room. But what else they have is they have a very diverse in several ways, both in ethnicity, but also in age. Um, they've got people in their 50s working alongside an individual that is still in high school, and it works beautifully. They are out there constantly seeking out to make sure that they keep it diverse and inclusive. And I've talked to one of the gals in there, and she's in her 50s, and she goes, at first, when we started getting all the gaming stuff in here, because we've been trained that our workday needed to look very, uh, the 8 to 5, whatever. And she goes, but I do stop and I take a 15-minute break and then I go back to it. And they've done this so beautifully. And so I've seen it work. And I agree with what you're saying, because I've seen that, and I go in there and I'm just, every time I'm like, why are more businesses not understanding and doing this? They say it, they walk in there and they see it and they tour it, but they aren't changing it. Like you said, we're doing all the finding the data's there, but we're not changing it.
Mhm.
And just going back to Shauna's point, before someone can even grasp a growth mindset, they got to put it next to what a fixed mindset looks like. And we have a lot of fixed mindset companies. We have a lot of fixed mindset leaders. They're fixing their ways and they continue to somewhat model and demonstrate the traditional way of leadership. Gallup talks about the coaching way, the developmental way. And I truly think that there needs to be a shift, because I believe that once you stop learning, you stop leading. And so I do believe that our leadership has also decreased because of COVID, because for whatever reason, people are giving their best excuse instead of their best effort.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. And I think part of it too, and would love you two's thoughts on this, but I think some of it has to do with just the different generations of workers. So when my parents grew up, it was definitely 8 to 5 at your desk. You're expected to be productive from that between those hours. And I know many of us have worked with people that they show up at a certain time and leave at a certain time, but we're also not sure what they got done during the day. So it really doesn't matter. I found but what are some of your thoughts on the generational differences and maybe for both of you actually, and how companies can be more thoughtful about that? It sounds like GIX has thought through some of that, but just curious about your thoughts.
I'll let you go first, Michaela.
I think so. 5 years ago, I would have told you that we were in a time where it was extremely difficult to find help. But what we're dealing with today is we're not even on the same playing field. Like it is stifling growth at this point for businesses. That's why when I came into the role that I'm in with the internships, even just having companies think differently about high school kids. But when I go into a company, they're like, yeah, I'll do an internship. And I'm like, no, I truly am looking for an internship. And by that, I mean, you're bringing these kids in and you're letting them see, like DeMoine said earlier, you're letting them see the different opportunities within your company, because that's going, if they have a great opportunity and build while they're there with you, they're going to look to come back to you later, right? If you provided an environment for them that they felt that they were included, that they were okay in, it was a safe place for them to be able to ask questions and grow and learn. That's how you're going to continue to grow and learn. That's your future. So we've got to be looking at things more from that growth mindset of not just here and now. What does that look like? And yeah, I think that the companies that are willing to pivot and change the way they've always been doing things are the companies that are going to be able to make it through this. But the companies that, or even not just in DeMoine's Adam, I know it's not companies in mine, I'm dealing more with companies, but those are the companies that have that innovative and growth mindset are the ones that are powering through and are thriving right now versus the ones that have had that same mindset of it worked for us for the last 50 years. Why isn't it working now?
Mhm.
And I think you used two words that stand out: being innovative and thriving. I think everyone's doing it when it comes to the things, when it comes to the work, but we're not doing it when it comes to people. If we can blend our generations and recognize that for us older adults, the expectation needs to be we need to meet students where they're at. We need to learn from this generation because this generation will be the next generation. Our generation will not be the next generation. We're not going back to VCRs. We're not going back to DVDs. And if you go to a store, everything, the game of life has changed.
Yeah.
So if we want to continue to be innovative and thrive as a company, as a school district or whatever it is that we're doing, we have to take that same approach with people. There needs to be a blend of generations, and the gap, who crosses that bridge first, needs to be the older generation walking across the bridge to join forces with the younger generation because they're going to be the future, not us.
Absolutely.
That's great. Michaela, any final questions for DeMoine?
I don't.
DeMoine, any final thoughts for us?
I just appreciate the opportunity. Very humbled because I've been working for teammates now for about 12 plus years and being able to redefine the concept of mentor, knowing that it's not just for a young person, but it's really about using your role to model what we want people to become, what we want people to strive for when it comes to being their authentic self and seeing their strengths and talents, cultivating their talents. And mentorship, my hope is that this word can be used, I guess, in a different way, because we have all been impacted by a mentor, knowingly or unknowingly. And when it comes to really successfully creating internships that will cultivate talent, and give a meaningful experience to students, that mentorship is about growth mindset. It's about listening. It's about being vulnerable. It's about building a relationship. It's about setting out those expectations and revisiting those expectations every single week. Because how can you have a growth mindset when you're not taking the time to show the growth and helping that young person build a growth mindset? It's a process, just like exercising.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Karen, I see you're still here. Do you have any final questions for DeMoine? If I don't see them in the chat, we'll call it good. But yeah, we really appreciate you, DeMoine, and your time today. Michaela, thanks as always for partnering with us.
Yes, thank you. And anytime.
Of course. All right. You two have a good one.
You
Oh,
too.
wait,
Bye-bye.
sorry. There is
Oh.
one question. Okay. Oh, she says she's good. Thanks for the great tip. So thank you.
All right.
Have a good one.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.